Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, we'll just begin in a minute. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا مولانا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope everyone is doing well, inshallah, as we continue on with our series. This time, inshallah, we'll be discussing it, we'll be moving into a different theme. Last week, the theme was selflessness. What does it mean? What are examples of selflessness? What can we learn from the selflessness of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And this week, inshallah, I wanted to go over something that is kind of a precursor, if you will. Now, the order is kind of funny, but in a way, it's still very relevant because what I wanted to discuss was adversity. How is it that we can understand how we're supposed to deal with adversity? What is it about adversity? Why is it that we even have to deal with adversity? Because the answer, or the question really is that as Muslims, if we're those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves, if we're those whom are chosen, if you will, why is it that we have to go through difficulty? What is the reason for it? And the answer is surprisingly very simple. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent us in this life for a very particular purpose. What is that purpose? To test us, to see who is going to step up when the going gets tough. There's of course the saying, when the going gets tough, the tough get going, right? It's the same thing in this world, because it's about seeing who is it that in spite of the difficulties they're going to face, in spite of the problems they're going to have in front of them, who is still going to stand up for what's right? Who's still going to do things in a way that they focus not just on how they can be benefited, but how they can benefit others. And we see something very particular that is enunciated to us, that is a true blessing that we don't really think about. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself says in the Quran, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that I will absolutely test you with something from fear and hunger and loss of wealth and life and fruits. وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. Give glad tidings to those who are patient. الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. See, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that these people, who are these patient ones? What does it mean to be an individual who's patient? They say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And this is a very interesting statement, because most of us, when we hear this statement, we immediately look around, who died? Who passed away? What happened? But realistically, this verse is not, or this saying is not something that we only say when someone dies, but we say when we face any difficulty, any calamity, any problem. It could be as simple as our phone breaking. And if that happens, if our finger gets stubbed, we stub our toe, or we pinch our finger in the door, it could be something as small as that. But if we remind ourselves, and that's what inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un is, if we remind ourselves, then at the end of the day, it's a very beautiful reminder, because this tells us something very specific. And what does it tell us? It reminds us that this life is temporary. It reminds us that whatever it is that I'm facing right now, whatever problem I have, whatever difficulty I'm facing, whatever concern has overtaken me, and whatever it is that's making me feel just overwhelmed, it's when I say inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, I'm reminding myself that this is temporary. How? When I say, I belong to Allah, indeed we belong to Allah, and indeed to Him we will return. I am remembering that the time I have in this world is extremely temporary. Inna lillahi, indeed we belong to Allah. Wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And we're definitely going back to Him, which means that if some creditors are trying to knock down my door to collect on bills that I haven't been able to pay, well, guess what? Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Yeah, it's difficult. Yeah, it is tough, no doubt. But if we're patient and we get that strength, and you get the strength by turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by seeking out opportunity, by seeking out different methods to be able to deal with that stress, by doing so, we allow ourselves to remember that this life is temporary. And you know what? I'm not going to What's the worst that could happen? Because even though what I'm going through right now is something that is difficult, it's hard to bear, it's hard to handle, it's not forever. The only thing that's going to be forever is, inshallah, paradise. The only thing that's forever is paradise. Imagine that for a second. Whatever problems we have in front of us, whatever difficulties we're facing, doesn't matter in the long run. Yes, it matters in the short run. Yes, we have to do our part. Yes, we have to take care of whatever it is that we have to. But long term, whatever problems it is that we're facing will eventually go away. And we'll be in paradise. And that's the beauty of Jannah, inshallah ta'ala. That is the beauty of not only being promised this as believers, but more than that, also being reminded that, you know what, we are going to have problems. Think about it for a moment and ask yourself this. How many times have you seen individuals who spend their entire life chasing after a life with no problems? It's literally like playing whack-a-mole. You get rid of money problems, boom. Guess what pops up now? Family problems. You knock down the family problems, oh, money problems are right back up. You knock down the money problems, and all of a sudden both are good for a little bit, and then what happens? Now you have a work problem that pops up. It's always going to be something. And anybody who stands there trying to take away every difficulty that they're facing, every problem that they're facing, and thinks that they can get everything down, it's never going to happen. And how do I know that? How do we know that? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says with emphasis in the Arabic language by putting that noon with the shadda at the end, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ. This indicates a heavy level of emphasis. And so now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, I will absolutely, definitely, certainly test you. Don't think you can escape it. Don't think you can walk away from it. You're going to face problems. You're going to have difficulties, whether it's with your family, whether it's with your health, whether it's with your wealth, whether it's with your business, whatever it might be, you're going to have these problems. And that is actually something so beautiful. Because when somebody at least knows something is coming, what can they do? They can prepare for it. When we know that a problem is coming to us, when we know something is going to happen, we can prepare for that problem. We can prepare how to deal with that problem, for how to deal with that problem. And that's huge, because even though I might be facing that problem, if I don't expect it to come and it blindsides me, now I'm going to be sitting there trying to act like I have no idea what to do. Something like the problem we're facing right now, the coronavirus, this definitely blindsided all of us. But in a broader sense, it really shouldn't surprise us. It shouldn't make us feel like, oh, this is something that we never expected, and how were we supposed to know it was going to? Because Allah told us, I will test you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. Adversity, brothers and sisters, at the end of the day, is something that requires us to dig deeper. And it brings out our true colors. It shows us what we're made of. I remember back in high school when we played football, our team was not the best in terms of talent, right? We were a bunch of, smaller kids in a very wealthy district, I'll say. And so in the time in that district, it's not like there was a lot of people who were going to be pro athletes. And yet, we were still able to always get a winning record. And our coach made it very clear why. He said that we're going to be better prepared than anybody else. You're going to have better conditioning than anybody else. We had to really, really dig super deep, and we had to get whatever it was, because he would push us in our conditioning, make us run and run and run and run and run. And none of us wanted to do it. But guess what? At the end of the day, when we were in the game, we saw the product translate on the field. We could actually be there in the last quarter of the game. We were in the fourth quarter, and we weren't tired. We were ready to keep going. See, and that's what this life is, brothers and sisters. This life is that test of conditioning. And so adversity will absolutely come to us. But see, the ones who step up in those moments are the ones who are earning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's love and pleasure. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself says in Surah Ankabut that do people think that they can say, I believe, and they won't be tested? Adversity is as much a part of being Muslim as anything else. And how can I say such a statement? How can I make such a statement? Because the Prophet ﷺ told us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests those whom he loves. He tests those whom he loves. So the one who lives their life with no problems, the one who's able to be comfortable and not have to worry about things, we should be concerned in that. We should be worried, because if that's the case with us, what does it mean that I'm not dealing with problems? Am I not being tested by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Does na'udhu billah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not love me? Now, I want to make it clear, and I think this is very important, that to not be able to succeed, if you will, succeeding is a very, very relative definition. And success in our trials, in our difficulties, is not something that is a static measure, meaning that because one person gets out of a difficult situation in one way doesn't mean we have to get through that situation the exact same way. What we have to do is deal with it according to our ability and our capacity, because Allah doesn't test a soul beyond its capacity. And if that's the case, then that doesn't mean that what someone else did is relevant to me, because I answer for myself. I don't answer for someone else. I don't answer for their capacity or their ability. I answer for my capacity and my ability. So that's the second part of adversity. We have to get out of this mindset that, oh, this person was able to do this in similar circumstances, so why can't you? That's not how it works, because every individual is so different. The Prophet ﷺ said, "An-nasu kal-ma'adin." People are like mines. You don't deal with a diamond mine the same way you deal with a gold mine, the same way you deal with a mine that has perhaps other precious gems in it. You don't deal with things in the same way. Additionally, he also ﷺ says, "Anzilu nas manazilahum." Deal with people according to their station. Deal with people according to how they are. Whatever adversity they are going through, you have to recognize that. You have to process that. And if you want to help them, you have to be able to give that assistance in a way that is relevant to them, not how it's relevant to you. This is really, subhanAllah, what psychology, this is what therapy and all these measures are about. It's about finding and understanding an individual and finding the best course of action to be able to treat their difficulties. Because somebody goes to therapy doesn't mean that they can't deal with adversity. Because somebody is has to go through very, very difficult times and then perhaps is depressed because of it, that doesn't mean that they failed their test, because the test in reality, brothers and sisters, is to remain steadfast on our deen. The test is to stay steadfast on our deen, to keep working, to keep trying, but just never ever losing La ilaha illallah in our hearts, never walking away or turning away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is the beauty of this deen, brothers and sisters. La yukallifullahu nafsan illa wusaha. Allah doesn't test the soul beyond its capacity. The soul will be tested to what its capacity is. An individual will be tested to what his or her capacity is, but not beyond that. Not a shred beyond that. And that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy, His rahmah, and His blessings for us. So brothers and sisters, inshallah, this week we are going to go over stories of different prophets. We're going to discuss different situations in their lives, and we're going to talk about what lessons it is that we can derive from those moments. Today is just an introduction to the idea of adversity in our deen, but we have to and it's important to do this because we have to really understand that adversity is not a static definition. The success against adversity is not a static definition. And how do we know this? Because we see different prophets, dealing with their circumstances in different ways. The best of all creation, which is our Prophet ﷺ, and then all the other prophets ﷺ after him, they dealt with their situations with how they were. They took care of them the way they were able to, according to their strengths, their abilities, and they were sent to people who were their own people to deal with it and understand how to deal with them, how to take care of their adversity and problems. And so we are going to look at different ways that these prophets ﷺ dealt with their people. We're going to understand, how did they deal with their adversity? How did they deal with their problems? And how did they succeed? And we'll understand, inshallah ta'ala, by the end of it, that this is not a static thing. Just because one person does things one way doesn't mean another person has to do it the exact same way, because if that was the case, then all of the best of creation would do the exact same thing every single time they ran into problems. They did have a common thread, which is that they turned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But their actual actions were not always the same. And we'll see this, inshallah, as we go through their different stories. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us in our efforts. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put barakah in our families. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep all those who are in difficult circumstances, to give them ease. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant a cure for this disease. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep our families and our friends and all of our loved ones and those across the world safe. بارك الله فيكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته وصلى اللهم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم.